and Georgie something. Paros and Drew Lasso, Namja Lombi Jorwai, Jamba from Sorum Sam, Zappa Gamba, Tendru Samba. Something on Sherab Lapa, Katendra, Jepate, some to Sabe, Jepate, and Rawa, Gini, Tedo Yamdo, Sempre Nilu, Tombani, and Gamba. Tela, 19 Yamso Lona, then long at the Ramba and your dead over there.
Atisha, in his short summary of that which is essential, says, or we've rather got to the particular verse where it says that to join the six transcendent virtues with your own meditative absorption, and in this way gradually traverse the fivefold path. We've heard over the last couple of days about these 6 transcendent virtues, the activities which are being practiced by the virtuous ones, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, in order to traverse the path that leads to the enlightenment of Buddhahood. These 6 paramitas, as they're also known, the transcendent virtues or activities which actually lead to the achievement of that path, are for the one part generosity, the giving of all sorts of things which are appropriate to the needy, the practice of proper conduct or discipline, the practice of patience in the face of adverse circumstances, the practice of meditative absorption, and eventually the practice, the giving rise to intelligence and wisdom. These are that which are to be practiced upon that path. Now it is said clearly in the words of Atisha that the practice of these transcendent virtues has to be coupled with meditative absorption or meditative concentration. And if we do so, if we were to practice in this way and combine these with each other in this way, then we would eventually be able to proceed along the 5 segments of the path, or to traverse the fivefold path, as it is also called. So we've heard of these 5 paths, or the fivefold paths, or the 5 segments of the path, however you want to call them. Just to reiterate, these are the paths of accumulation, joining, seeing, of familiarizing, and of no more learning. At that particular point, when we look at these 5 segments or stages of the path, if we might wonder where we find ourselves at right now, we found ourselves at the very first stage, which is the path of accumulation. If one were to look at these individual segments of the path, having heard that we find ourselves at the very first one, which is the path of accumulation, that again can be subdivided into 3 divisions. There is the lesser path of accumulation, the intermediate one, and the superior one. Now, looking at it in this way, we all find ourselves at the lesser path of accumulation, at square one, so to speak. And this is being borne out by the fact that we have started to familiarize ourselves with certain Dharma contents, with certain Dharma practice, and occasionally we actually do manage to understand something, very occasionally. And occasionally we also manage to accumulate some merit by way of making some aspirations and prayers, by way of giving a little bit of that which we possess away to others, or presenting the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, etc., with offerings. Very occasionally we might also feel that now would be the moment to practice a little bit of development process meditation in the course of which one imagines oneself in the form of a Yidam deity or to repeat the mantra of some such deity. So occasionally we do practice virtue in this way, which again accumulates us some merit. And therefore, since this is the case, we, all of us as we're here, find ourselves very much at square one, which is the lesser part, the lesser, division of the parts of accumulation.
Sowa dewa to donga laso, tendawa yenayo, sowa dongaji, tona, tige, mondo jumsi, kishene gamni dina, sowa donga de pa yan doa, yendu, sowa tenina yang, demba madrupa, toba. Then semda, maron songa, semda, son sona, chipo yung, son sona, donga mara, ombo yung, yendu, 당시 sembe 모데 담바 마드파 텔라티네 semdala 다신지나 되네 담보 마치바 바르도 망가바 바르도 마네바 탈 망가바 쟁거니 섬제롱 인진도 상네 gambar나 암망비시데스 되니 추라서 뭐도 지티비 건조부 춘다 통기 되는 나름 좀 가시는 얘도 모아라 가시는 얘도 모아 가시는 망치한 내가 상면 가야만 동용게 철든도 대연도 대용 아루 난가 내도 보초시라 되네 가시라 얘도 가시도 얘도 모아한테 난고요 옛날 주동지게 모아 Nemba madru pari do samba laso. Ah, solo chumukala, temba nyewari japa ye. Tendawala, tenene nyonin teriori.
As we find ourselves on the lesser path of accumulation, the very first step, what is the predominantly important, the most important thing, or the most important practice that we should train ourselves in? It is commonly known as the 4 kinds of mindfulness. We are called upon to be mindful of our bodies, of whatever we do with our bodies, whatever we do physically. We are called upon to be mindful of sensations and perceptions. We are supposed to be mindful of that mind itself, that perceiving mind, whatever goes on in this mind. And we are called upon to be mindful of appearances and phenomena that we perceive, that appear to us, that we are confronted with. Being mindful of body means that whatever we do physically, whatever it is that we're active with, that we actually do with our hands, etc., and so forth, wherever we go, we ought to be mindful of that. We ought to check ourselves in that regard, and it goes without saying and is easily understood. We're also called upon to be mindful of whatever perceptions and sensations arise, whatever it is that we perceive, whatever it is that we confront. And as we examine these perceptions, and as we examine all of these various different types of sensations and combinations thereof, etc., we could, for instance, reflect that in the very moment of having a sensation, in the very moment of making a perception, that these in themselves are completely empty of any inherent nature, utterly non-existent, free of any substance. If we were to examine them as to any defining characteristics, we would simply find none. Similarly, that perceiving awareness of ours, consciousness or mind as it is also called, also at any given moment is free of any inherent self-nature. It has no self-nature to itself, it has no substance to itself, and try as we might, however hard we would examine it, we could not find any shape to it, we could not find any color, we could not even find any particular place from which it arises, where it abides, or where it ceases to be. No matter when and how we become aware of something, that awareness in itself also is free of any defining characteristics whatsoever, and can just simply not be pinned down or dubbed with anything in any which way soever. And then finally, there are all the various appearances and phenomena which we constantly do perceive, which cause us perceptions and sensations and so forth. These are to be equally examined. And if we were to do so accordingly, then we would equally invariably come to the conclusion that whatever appears so seemingly solid, so seemingly real, whatever it is, nothing whatsoever excluded. Also, all of these appearances and phenomena are equally empty of any self-nature, equally empty of any particular qualities that we could dub onto them, or any defining characteristics that we could possibly try to pin onto them. So in this way, as we find ourselves on the lesser path of accumulation, on the very first step or stage, so to speak, these 4 types of mindfulness are what are to be practiced predominantly. So much for a very brief explanation of the 4 types of mindfulness which are the predominant practice upon the lesser paths of accumulation. Now, if we were to proceed to the middle, the intermediate paths of accumulation, that would in turn be characterized by the 4 types of letting go, or the 4 types of abandoning. However, since we have so nicely and auspiciously presented Rinpoche with our birthday congratulations, we have presented him with the mandala and the various representations of Buddha, body, speech, awareness, activities, qualities and activities. And since we have so profusely repeated again and again long life prayers for Rinpoche, therefore, time is up right now. So what remains to be done at this moment is to dedicate whatever merit has been accumulated here for the sake of all beings. The rice that has been prepared was very delicious indeed. She himself says he enjoyed it very much, as very likely all of us have also, and a good sip of tea to go with it. So as one contemplates the taste of the rice and the tea and all of that, all of a sudden, time is gone. Yes, such is the case with such delicious sweets. You sit there and you nibble away, and you nibble some more, and then some more again, and all of a sudden you recognize that the time has been flying.